Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today I want to just show some cards of, I guess I'm going to call them vintage, not vintage. Vintage players, but not vintage cards. But they are kind of vintage cards, so I don't know, you can figure that one out. I'm going to start first with a couple of sets. These are all, like I said, vintage players. And these are from 1980, so I guess you can call them vintage cards, but they're post-playing days cards. You know, now that the old-timers cards like the Josh Gibson has become very popular, you know, I figured I'd pull some of these out and just, you know, the good thing about these cards, this is the Honus Wagner. This is the Famous Feats Laughlin series from 1980, as you can see, 1980 R.G. Laughlin. And this is the second series of Famous Feats. And what I love about these cards is just, you know, it tells you a little bit of a history about them, a little bit. They're blank backed, but it tells you a little bit about what they did. So kind of like for kids or you want to just, you know, learn a little bit about some of these players. It's a really cool set. So it says Honus Wagner hit over 317 straight years. So a lot of cool stuff in this. And I'm just going to go through it and show you all the players. Herb Pennock. Al Simmons, you can see, had over 200 or more hits in 5 straight seasons. These are all, most of these are going to be Hall of Famers or people that did famous feats. This is Hack Wilson. Hit 56 home runs in 1930. I mean, nobody got close to those numbers except the Babe, and that was the only guy that really got even close to that. Dizzy Dean won 34 games in 1934, plus 2 in the World Series, so won 36 games total. Chuck Klein, another big hitter. You know, this is great because you learn a little bit about the players, and they're cool cards. Even though they're post-playing days, they're still vintage cards. And these cards are, what, 44 years old now. It's Nellie Fox. So it's a good way to, and they're not expensive sets, but it's great to have some Hall of Fame players and on vintage cards, essentially, even though they are way, you know, post-playing days. You know, you have George Sisler here, had 237 hits. Some incredible feats, again, famous feats. Here's one of the big cards from the set, and that's the Lou Gehrig when he breaks the plate. 2,130 consecutive games. One of my favorite guys, Rube Waddell, won 10 games in 1 month, and he's got an incredible story. Max Carey stole 51 bases in 53 attempts. You have Thurman Munson. So you see, remember, this was in 1980, so these were made in 1980. So you still have some modern, not modern, but at the time, Thurman Munson was a modern player. And he made 7 straight hits in the World Series. You got Mel Ott, because these are all famous feats. Mel Ott batted in 100 or more runs in 8 years. Doc White, 5 straight shutouts. And, you know, of course, you have to have the Babe in the set. There's the Babe Ruth card. Babe led the American League in homers 12 times. So just kind of want to share some of the famous feats that's happened in the history of baseball. Schoolboy Rowe won 16 straight games in 1934. And you can't have one of these sets without having Jackie. There's the Jackie Robinson card of the set. Jackie became the first black major leaguer in 1947. Huge, famous feat. You got Joe Medwick, 64 doubles in 1 season. You got Casey Stengel, 5 straight world championships from 1949 to 1953. They always show him as an old man there. And have to have included in the set a Roberto Clemente. Roberto totaled 10 hits in 2 consecutive games in 1970. So I don't know, Theo, you need to get this card if you don't have it, even though it's post-playing days. We got Christy Mathewson, that's for Sammy, had a .665 winning percentage lifetime. Look at that, 373 wins and 188 losses. Probably one of the greatest pitchers of all time. I would say him and Walter Johnson. There's Jimmy Fox, 30 or more homers. And again, you can't have baseball history without Joe Jackson. Shooters Joe had a .356 lifetime average, so you can't pick up a plain days Joe Jackson card, but you can still pick up a vintage Joe Jackson card here for 1980. How about Walter Johnson? Of course, I believe he's the best pitcher of all time, and he struck out 3,508 batters here. And then we got Tony Lazzeri, another big feat, drove in 11 runs in 1936 with 3 homers and 2 slams in a single in one game. 11 runs in one game. There we got Hugh Carey, .718 winning percentage as a reliever. One of the first big-time relievers. And, of course, you have to include Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb, who had 4,191 hits. You got some other guys here that you may not have heard of. Stuffy McGinnis only made 1 error in the whole season. Fielding percentage of .999. And, of course, the winningest pitcher ever, Cy Young. He won 20 or more games 16 times. Incredible. Cy Young. Vintage Cy Young card. We got Lefty O'Doul. Reached base safely 334 times. 334 times. Incredible. Eddie Collins. Man, people don't know about him at all. Played for 25 years and hit .333. Incredible hitter. Here's another Yankee great manager, Joe McCarthy. Won 7 out of 8 World Series. You got Big Ed Walsh. Had a lifetime ERA, lifetime of 1.82. And look at this. People say that Jackie stole home. George Burns stole home 27 times. Walt Dropo made 12 straight hits in 1952. Some cool facts, some cool stuff. So it's a good way to learn a little bit about baseball, but also collect some vintage with some Hall of Famers. Connie Mack, 50 years as a manager with the A's. 50 years as a manager. Great records. Probably many of these will never be broken. Babe Adams walked only 18 in 263 innings. Wow. How about the great Rogers Hornsby? Average 402 over 5 years. Can you believe that? 402 average over 5 years? Rogers Hornsby. And one of the greatest pitchers, probably number 3 or 4 or 5. No, I would say he's definitely a top 10, maybe a top 5 pitcher ever. Check out his stats. Grover Cleveland Alexander. He pitched 90 shutouts. So that's the Laughlin famous feat. I'll show you one more set. This is from 1985. Again, it's a vintage, not vintage, but it's vintage players. This is the Topps Collector Series, and these tells you all the stats. So this is a great set that tells you all the information about all of these Hall of Famers. And again, it was printed in 85, so it is almost 40 years old. So, but it's a great learning. These are great sets for kids. If you want to teach kids to learn about, you know, vintage players, this is a good way to start. Good cheap way to pick up some cards there. There's Grover Cleveland Alexander, and it tells you what they are, all-time record holder, and in the back it tells you their records. The back, he had 4 one-hitters in 1915 and all that stuff. So you got Ernie Banks. So you got some great players. These are all Hall of Famers that are some of the top Hall of Famers. Yogi Berra, Lou Brock. So it's a really cool set, even though a lot of these are post-playing days. But, you know, still, this is 1985, so some of these players may still have been playing. There's Steve Carlton, not Jack Chesbro. You got Ty Cobb. You know, you got nice pictures of the players there. I'm trying to get a good shot of these sometimes. You got Sam Crawford. Again, another incredible player. If you don't know about Sam Crawford, I mean, you got to check it out. I don't want this video to be too long, but set major league record with 312 triples. You got Raleigh Fingers. So again, you had some players that were still playing during those days, because this is from the early 80s, but you have a lot of retired players like Whitey Ford, and some all-time greats that have done some records. Johnny Frederick. Go back and read about him. He set the major league record with 6 pinch hit home runs in 1932. You got Frankie Fritsch. These are all like record-setting guys. And then again, you got the big Lou Gehrig card in here. You know, you're gonna have all the top big names. And people that set some stuff. You got, you know, Gentile. He had a, says here, tied major league record of 5 grand slams in 1961. But you also have upcoming stars in this set, which is kind of neat, because here's Dwight Gooden. Again, this is from 1985. So this is, you know, really a playing days card of Dwight Gooden. So if you don't have one, you don't have this card of Doc, get it? The same thing with Ricky. Here's a Ricky card, which is a playing days card, but it's in this all-time great series because he is an all-time great. 130 bases in 1982. You got Rogers Hornsby. So we went with the famous feats, which is all like older guys, really the pre-war, and now you've got some of the other guys. Frank Howard, 10 home runs in 1 week. People that set records, you know, these guys were playing. This guy, Cliff Johnson, was playing at the time. 19 pinch hit home runs for a lifetime. And then you got the old guys like the Walter Johnsons. So a cool set of cards, these all-time record holders. Really nice looking cards with great, you know, nice photos of the players. Hub Leonard. Again, these guys all accomplished stuff in their time. Again, you can't be without the Mick in this set. You got to have the Mick. So you do have a Mickey Mantle in here. And again, it tells you 18 home runs in the World Series. And you got to have a Roger Maris. So it's a cool set with cool pictures of Hall of Famers. Look at this picture of Christy Mathewson. That's not a picture you see very often, Christy Mathewson. But there he is. Nice picture of him there, all time. And of course, you got to have Willie. Rest in peace, Willie. Willie Mays. All-star record. A lot of records. And it just goes on and on. And you got Stan Musial. You've got one of the great relievers during the 80s there, Dan Quisenberry, shows up in this set. Along with, of course, one of the most underrated players ever is Frank Robinson. Incredible player and manager. First black manager. Needs to be recognized more for that. Got Pete Rose in there, of course. because you got to have the all-time hit leader in this set, along with you got to have the home run leader here. You got to have Babe Ruth, greatest player ever. And that picture is also in the 1962 set in the Babe series. Of course, you have Nolan Ryan. So these are two cool little sets. You know, if you like this kind of stuff, I collect them. I like them. I wish I would have had the all-time Black Stars of this set, the Laughlin set. But I'm going to look through my little sets. I have a lot of these little sets. There's Tris Speaker. And I'm going to pull some of these out and just kind of share some of these old-time vintage players and vintage cards. So I guess that's what I'm going to call the video. Vintage, not vintage. Lloyd Wayner. Just some great players that have a piece of baseball history. Earl Webb, Major League record is 67 doubles in 1931. And again, you have to have Ted Williams in the set. You gotta have a Splendid Splinter. A little bit different picture of Ted. You don't see that picture on a card very often. One of the greatest players, again, is Maury Wills. Hack Wilson, man, he was incredible. Again, it's great to go back and read up on these guys. 190 runs batted in 1 year. Owen Wilson, look at that old uniform there, old time picture with the glove in the batting, and he's got the glove in the on the back in the pocket. Just I love all these old style stuff, and he set the Major League record with 36 triples in 1912. You got good old Willie Wilson in the set. Rudy York, and one of the greatest pitchers of all time, Cy Young. Again, just some cool pictures, and now I see a lot of card manufacturers going back and putting old players in new sets, and that's something that's happened in the past. So I just wanted to share these two. 80 set, the Laughlin Famous Feats from 1980, and the 1985 all-time record holder set for Topps Collector Series. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope everyone has an awesome time. Remember, on Saturday at 3 o'clock, we're going to have the Staying Alive, Me and Petty Hobby Palooza, Saturday at 3 o'clock. I'll talk a little bit more about that on my next video. But thanks for watching. Everybody have an awesome day. This is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and I'll catch you on the next one.